Hello. How is everyone today? How are you doing today, Cheryl?
I'm doing well, very well.
Everyone, this is Cheryl Scott. I met Cheryl. It's almost like we said it was like preordained. We just started talking and we found that we had some things in common. But I wanted you to come on today to talk about something that it touched me when you told me you were going through this. So could you tell everyone what your health concern is, the situation that you're going through now?
Well, actually, I was diagnosed on December 8th of 2022 with stage 3 ovarian cancer. And I'm kind of a unique um, patient because I don't have any ovaries. I had my ovaries removed and my fallopian tubes removed in July of 2016. I've actually been diagnosed with the BRCA1 gene. My mom died of ovarian cancer at the age of 48, and my sister died of breast cancer at the age of 41.
Mhm.
So I had the gene mutation testing, and I do have the gene for BRCA1, breast cancer 1. So
Mhm,
once I was diagnosed, the first thing I did was I had my ovaries, and I had already had a hysterectomy. I left my fallopian tubes and ovaries because I didn't want to have to go on hormone therapy.
mm,
But once I got that diagnosis, I scheduled to have my ovaries and fallopian tubes removed, which were removed in July of 2016.
mhm,
And then in September of 2017, I had a prophylactic double mastectomy. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure I have no chance of getting these two horrible diseases. And then May of 2022, I started feeling pain on my right side.
mhm,
And because I had no female organs or anything, I thought it had to be gastrointestinal, as did my doctors.
mhm,
So, colonoscopy, endoscopy, everything came back normal, but everyone's still kind of leaning toward gastrointestinal because, again, there's no organs there. And from May until December, the pain never went away, but it seemed like it got lighter, or maybe I wasn't paying much attention to it.
mhm,
And then on December 8th, I must have rolled and laid on the tumor. And I literally leapt out of my bed in tears.
mhm,
And I went right to my patient portal and I said, I need to see someone this morning. There's something very wrong.
mhm,
And when I got there, they did a CAT scan and they saw this huge tumor in my pelvic area. And so what they do after that is every cancer has a number that's equated with it through a blood test.
mhm.
So the blood test for ovarian cancer is CA, so cancer 125. And my CA 125 came back from ovarian cancer. And to say I was in disbelief is an understatement. My thought process was, how do I have ovarian cancer and I don't have ovaries? And my oncologist said that I was the third patient that had been diagnosed like me in 2022 in her office. So I'm not the only one, but in her office, I was the third patient. BRCA1, surgery with no ovaries, being diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Can I ask,
Um,
can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
Okay, you got your ovaries or you got those organs removed. Did you get them to try to prevent from getting cancer after your
Exactly.
parents, after your mother and your aunt were
My mother, my
diagnosed?
sister, yes, I
Your
did.
sister? Okay.
That
And
was the reason I did it.
you came down with it anyway.
Exactly. And if you Google Cheryl Scott ovarian cancer, there's actually an interview with my gynecologist who said when I was diagnosed that it took her breath away because she said we had done everything right. We
Mhm,
thought we had beat it.
mhm,
And I mean, she had tears when I met with her after the diagnosis,
mhm,
as did my GYN doctor. Any professional medical professional I came in contact with was in disbelief. There's only 3 to 5% of women who are BRCA1 who've had the surgery I had that are still diagnosed with ovarian cancer. 3 to 5%.
Mhm,
So that's why we all thought that I had beat it,
mhm,
because it's such a small number,
mhm,
but still a number. And that's why when we talked about doing this interview, I just wanted to make sure that, I had a false sense of security after having the surgeries.
mhm,
And I just wanted to spell that. I'm even, talking to one of my therapists. Um, she was asking me a lot of questions because she's had a hysterectomy.
mhm,
And now she's going to ask her GYN doctor to examine her. She's going to go back
mhm.
um, because you just can't, you have to have a second opinion. And sometimes the second opinion is you. You've got to say, okay, I know what they say, but maybe I should still get checked.
Even if you don't have any type of symptoms, you should still get checked for that?
I think every woman, whether you have symptoms or not, should go to their um, GYN doctor every year and also their general practitioner. Because because I had stopped going to my GYN doctor because I don't have breasts, I don't have a uterus, I don't have fallopian tubes or ovaries. So I really don't need that doctor, I thought,
Mhm.
but I did.
Is it kind of safe to say that maybe genetics played a part?
It's more than safe. It is huge. Um, my my mother being diagnosed, and she died in 1985 of
Mhm,
ovarian cancer, and her cancer had metastasized to her brain. So I watched that for 6 months, watching her go downhill. And then my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer, but at the time she died in June of 1999. But at the time, we didn't really equate what happened to my mother to what was happening to my sister.
mhm,
But then when you step back and do just a little research, that's two immediate family members with cancer that succumbed to it at a very early age, 48 and 41.
mhm,
So that's when the alarm bells went off for my doctor. Um, I'm from upstate New York, from Rochester, but my doctor in Rochester never did the genetic testing, which is another thing that kind of bothered me
mhm,
because with my family history, you would think it was an automatic, let's just make sure she's okay. But
mhm,
when I moved down to the Charlotte area, my gynecologist, Dr. Parson, the first visit I had with her, she said, "I don't like your family history. I want to do genetic testing." And I said, "Okay, when do I schedule it?" She said, "Oh no, I'm walking you to the lab right now." She literally walked me to the lab,
mhm,
watched them draw my blood, sealed the envelope, the plastic envelope,
mhm,
and it came back positive for BRCA1. So definitely genetics, which and what they don't tell you or people may not be aware of is that if you have BRCA1, your children have a 50-50 chance of being diagnosed with BRCA1 or BRCA2.
mhm,
So I have a son and a daughter. My daughter, thank God, was tested and she does not have the gene, but because of my family history, she's already started with mammograms and she's 33, and she's also getting annual um, transvaginal ultrasounds
mhm,
just in case.
mhm.
Even though she doesn't have the gene mutation, my doctors are watching her like a hawk because of my diagnosis and her grandmother's and her aunts.
So
My
she,
son right now doesn't want to get tested. He um, with men, the concern is prostate cancer, and he's just not. He's, Mom, I just don't want to talk about it right now. I said, okay, but just know that it's something that I'm not saying you're going to do anything, surgery or anything, but at least you'll have that information to
mhm.
know how to move forward. But I don't nag him. He knows my concerns, and hopefully he will do that for the sake of himself, um, if not for his family.
What about if your daughter, if she has children, is that something that she's gonna be on the lookout for her own children?
exactly. Because I have my grandmother, my father's mother, did not have any of these cancers. She had Parkinson's, but she didn't have these cancers. And I don't know much about my mother's side of the family health wise. They weren't close, which means we weren't close.
Mhm,
But my grandmother's first cousin had breast cancer. So it's my great aunt had cancer, and then my grandmother didn't have cancer. So I had, a small history on my father's side, but I had a major history on my mother's side.
mhm,
I'm not knowing what happened to my grandmother and her health, my mother's mother, but I do know what happened with my mother and my sister.
mhm.
And so we, it is definitely genetic, genetically based for us. Yeah.
What other symptoms have you had besides the pain in your side?
Well, some of the symptoms of ovarian cancer could be bloating. So you just always feel full, frequent urination
Mhm,
because the tumor might be laying on your bladder
mhm,
or near your bladder. And those are the major things. Um, you might have some bleeding if you still are able to have a period. You may still have some bleeding, irregular bleeding. So
mhm.
those are the main symptoms, but mainly bloating and pelvic pain are the leading ones.
What type of treatment are you having now? What are they doing to you now?
Well, so I was diagnosed in December of 2022.
Mhm,
January 12th of 2023, I had the surgery to remove the tumor,
mhm,
but it was more than one. There were 27 tumors. When the doctor got in there, they thought that the operation was going to take 5 hours. It took 7.5. Um, they had to remove my spleen because of cancer, two sections of my liver,
mhm,
part of my diaphragm, and the sheath off my bladder because the tumors were trying to get to my bladder. So that was January 12th of 2023. And
mhm,
then February, I started chemo. So I had
mhm,
6 rounds of chemo every 21 days. My last chemo treatment was June 30th, the day after my 66th birthday.
2 weeks ago.
And yeah, well,
Oh,
it was a year ago and 2 weeks ago.
oh,
Yeah,
you
so
2 weeks
this,
ago.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Mhm,
And it was to say chemo, people don't even, I mean, everyone goes through their own different trial, but if you can imagine, my particular journey was every joint in my body aching. I had a headache, um, dizziness, um, either diarrhea or constipation, depending on the day,
mhm.
nausea, vomiting, lightheadedness. I passed out a couple of times because my blood pressure dropped. It was just it was just an awful, awful time for my kids, awful time for my grandkids who are in New York, but they knew my son wasn't there. He was practically here about 7 months when you put all total together from
Mhm,
the surgery and the chemo. He was here for 4 of the 6 chemo treatments and 2 surgeries. And in the midst of this, I had 2 um, small bowel obstructions, which is when there's a blockage, usually with scar tissue. So you can't make stinkers, you can't pass gas, and those are the signs that something may be going on. And again, you got the bloating, unbelievable pain. So I had one of those in March. I was in the hospital for 11 days, and they were able to resolve that with an NG tube, so a tube down my nose into my stomach until the small bowel obstruction got better. Then I had another one in May, and that required emergency surgery. So when I say emergency surgery, within hours of the exam showing that I had obstruction, I was in the OR. They after the surgery, I was in intensive care. I needed a blood transfusion. I went into renal failure. I went into AFib. Um, I was intubated, so I was on a breathing machine. And then they put an NG tube in while I was out. Because when I say you'd rather leave your arm at at a hospital than to go through that NG tube going the opposite direction of everything that's supposed to come out of your nose, it's going the other way. Horrible experience because you have to be awake. So I was glad that they did that while I was sleeping under anesthesia. So to say my journey has been difficult is an understatement, but I also want to put a spin on this that everything I've gone through when I was first diagnosed, just like I'm talking to you, I never asked God why, but I did say, what's up? I don't have ovaries. How do I have ovarian cancer? And the way my my oncologist explained it to me is that when they remove your fallopian tubes and ovaries, they're hung by ligaments. So they can only go but so close to the wall, the pelvic wall, without putting a hole in it. So they got as close as they could, of course, and they believe that they've gotten everything, but there must have been some ovarian cells still at the wall where the ligaments attached. And they were dormant from July of 2016 to May of 2022. So for 6 years, dormant. And then they must have started talking together. And the next thing they were multiplying and multiplying and then it became that. So I never asked God why, but I did ask him what's up. And I heard him say, just like I'm talking to you, this is going to work together for your good and my glory. And I didn't understand it at the time, but all I said was, okay. The fact that you invited me to be a part of your platform is working together for his glory. Because if we can get the word out that just because you've had your organs removed does not mean you cannot get cancer. One of the good things about having a prophylactic double mastectomy is all the breast tissue is removed. So, but I still go for ultrasounds now because of this happening with the ovaries. I still go for breast ultrasounds, even though there's no tissue there. Just for my peace of mind and the doctors, I still have that. And I had a CAT scan this past Friday, and it came back normal. There's no cancer anywhere, thank God. So I continue in a remission. I'm on a drug now. It's called Lynparza, and it's a relatively new drug that they've discovered that actually stops the cancer cells from communicating. So it's Lynparza, Lynparza. So I'm on that. I started August of 2023, and the only drawback, one of the statistics of some of the studies have shown that if you're on this drug more than 2 years, then you're diagnosed with an incurable bone cancer. So
Are
a
they going to
year,
switch you? Are they going to switch you or continue you on that?
it's in fact, I meet with my oncologist next week. Even though it's a year out, I want to start talking about that because I want to know, on average, how many percentage of people who are on this drug do get the incurable bone cancer. And if there's nothing else out there in a year, which will be, because in my mind, I'm thinking I've got to quit taking that. I have to stop taking this August 23rd of 2025. That will be 2 years from when I started it. But if I'm not on something, then that gives the disease a chance to metastasize and start back up. So,
Are they sure that it will do that?
without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. If I'm not on something, some kind of therapy, it will definitely start back up. Because I was already stage 3. There's only one other stage that's worse than that, and that's stage 4, which means the likelihood of it reoccurring is high. But there's a God, and I don't know what he has in store for me. But in the meantime, I'm going to do what the healthcare professionals say, and 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 I'm honestly not afraid to die. I'm really not, but I don't want to hurt my kids and my friends and my family. So that's why I go the extra mile and I'll do exactly what they say until, until God says something different or my health turns where I don't have the
Hold on,
strength.
just hold on for a moment.
Okay, no worries. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But you know what? What's happening to you happened to me so many times during last year. And even when I watch some commercials like St. Jude's commercials, I start to cry because I only think about what it was like going through chemo as an adult. What is it like to go through chemo as a child? So no matter how bad my situation is, there's always someone who's worse, especially a child. So I'm just trying to, you already heard me say therapist, because you have to talk.
To
I
someone.
never, I didn't easily arrive to this place. Like I'm not afraid to die. I've never been afraid to die because I do believe that, the Lord is my savior and I know where I'm going to spend eternity. I know how hard my kids fought to keep me here and, how they put their lives on hold last year. And so I know I have to do my best until I don't have the strength to do it or God says something different. And hopefully, we've already had the talk. They know where I want my service. They know I want to be back in Rochester. They know, you know, I want a memorial service unless I look like this. If I don't look like this, just put up pictures, you know. Um, but we've had that talk. They know all the valuable stuff that's in my house, and I'm not talking about financial valuable, but sentimental valuable.
Mhm.
And everything else is just stuff. Don't hold on to the sofa because it was Ma's. It there was just a place to decorate the living room. Now my pictures are another thing. Family albums are another thing, but we've had that talk and we only had to have it once. I told them I don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. We have to have it once. And then we don't have to bring it up anymore. But you need to know my wishes, and they do, and I can't get them to discuss it anymore if I wanted to. We don't have to.
I was just thinking like when my kids were coming up, and I thank God that I didn't have to deal with what you're going through. I just, but I think one of the things, just bringing up my children, I used to pray that I would be here for them till at least until my youngest child got 18.
Right.
And then I said everything else was the icing on the cake. It was a cherry on
Yeah,
the cake.
exactly.
So God help me with that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about leaving my children, hoping that someone who loved them would care for them.
Right.
But the point I was going to say is that I think what kept me going was that it was my children. And I'm wondering, it sounded like it was the same thing for you. Your children.
Absolutely. I mean, I would be in my bed. My daughter would stay on the sofa, even though she has um, my son would be upstairs in one guest room. And my daughter, I have a guest room on the first floor, and she would be there. But whenever I was going through a rough patch, she would sleep on the sofa so that she could look into my bedroom and see me. And there were some times when they would both come to the door, one at different times. And all I could do was just cover my eyes because to see the hurt in their face
Mhm.
hurt me even more. And my son, who never posts on Facebook, this year on my birthday, he did. And he said that he started with a joke that um, I had they had made seafood pasta. I love seafood. So they had made seafood pasta, and he left the kitchen for a little bit. And I tasted, I thought it needed some more salt. But because of the chemo, my taste buds were jacked up. So we had this very salty seafood pasta. And he said, this is his Facebook post. He said, I left the kitchen for 2 minutes and she throws all this salt in here. He said, but my sister and I did the best we could and we ate as much as we could before it got to be too much. And then he just said, but I have to honestly tell you, there were some times last year when I wasn't sure we'd be able to celebrate her birthday. That hit me. That even in their minds, they thought they were going to lose me. And there was one time, and I'm a fierce fighter. Mm-hmm. And with the small bowel obstruction, I did give up. I mean, I felt like there was, if you can imagine, the pain was so bad. I thought it was going to stop my heart. That's how much pain. It was like I could barely breathe. I'm in so much pain. And the doctors, I don't know if they didn't believe I was in the pain I was in, or, was there something else that was behind their thinking about letting this ride out, because I did go through, I was able to go through, being in the hospital 11 days without surgery. So maybe they thought this was going to be another opportunity, but I had no NG tube. So how was it ever going to be resolved? But I remember, my nephew was there, my niece was there, my daughter was there. I'm so glad she wasn't alone. And I just basically told them, I said, I don't think I'm going to make it. I said, I think I'm going to die. I said, get Alex on the phone so I could say goodbye. That's my son. So my daughter, my nephew's crying, my niece is crying, my daughter, of course, is crying. And they get my son on the phone, and I just say, I just want to tell you I love you so much. And please tell the kids I love them. And, I'm going on. And he's like, Ma, I already bought a ticket. I'm flying down tonight. Please hold on. And I said, I don't know if I can. That was the first time I ever felt like I wasn't going to make it through this whole journey. My last chemo treatment, I literally had to be wheeled in. And even the nurses were like, what happened? And I said, I don't have any strength. So they had to not even give me the full strength of the chemo because they were afraid that it would knock me out like hospitalization. Mm-hmm. So then I'm thinking, okay, if they don't give me the full strength, does that mean the cancer's coming back? Your mind just constantly, even when I have a little pain on the right side, I have to talk myself out of it's not cancer. Obviously, because your blood work is coming back, no cancer. Your CAT scans are coming back, no cancer. But for that split second of that pain, you can't help it. You immediately go to, is the cancer back? And then you have to talk yourself and say, no, no, girl, it ain't. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm trying to see what type of questions to really ask. You said you took scans, you had chemo, you had surgery. You're looking out, you're on top of it, you're keeping, you're aware of things, and you're going to follow up on things.
And it still might not be enough. And I have to, even though it's a very difficult resolve to have, but I have to also think about that. And, I've even talked to my kids about, when I'm not able to fight anymore. And I said, I promise you, I'm going to fight until I can't. But once I can't, I'm going to let you know. But in the meantime, no, I'm going to go forward because I have 5 beautiful grandchildren, 4 grandsons and a granddaughter. And I live for them. I live for my kids. I live for my family. I live for my friends. And so I'm just going to keep fighting, but I'm also aware that I met a lady who was stage 3, just like me, and she's been alive 17 years. And I know that that's possible because I've met this woman, and she's not just one. There's lots of women. There is a group, a support group called Teal Diva, which is why I'm wearing teal today. And you have an opportunity to meet women who are just like you, going through gynecological cancers, who are at different stage of their journeys. But meeting someone who's survived 17 years, 12 years, 8 years, 11 years, it gives me hope.
It's
And I am
inspiring.
not hopeless. I have hope. Um, and I trust that, I'm going to use my time wisely, like this. Your platform is huge. I'm hoping that, people who see this can say, yeah, I had a hysterectomy, but I met someone via YouTube who was diagnosed with cancer and she doesn't have ovaries. So, yes, I want you to check me today. Or, yes, I want an appointment today, just for my peace of mind.
I want to say you're very kind. My platform is not huge, but
Oh,
I
but you know
like,
what? I'm speaking prophetically. I'm speaking prophetically
I receive, I receive it.
because trust me, after today, I'm going to do a link to another opportunity that I've given to get the word out with your permission. So don't never despise small beginnings. Everyone started small. You had to. Unless you were born with a lot of money and you just walked right into whatever your destiny is. But for those of us who don't have that, we start small. And in using this opportunity, people are going to share this with other women, trust me. And those women are going to share it with other women. And that's how you're going. Not only is God going to build your platform, but he's also going to help other women with their health. That's the main goal for me right now, is getting the word out. And health professionals, I love my doctors. I'm not just using words. I love them because none of us thought cancer, not me and not them. My nephew was married November of 2022. And when I say I danced up something, I had such a good time. And I'm so glad that I didn't know that I had cancer as a diagnosis, because it would have affected the entire, ceremony. And then I didn't tell my family till after Christmas, except for my children. But my sisters and my brother-in-laws and nieces and nephews, I didn't tell any of them. I didn't want to ruin their Christmas. But on December 26th, I told them. And they were just like, why didn't you tell us? I said, for the very reason, we had a ball yesterday. We laughed, we drank, whatever everybody was doing, we did it, played games. But now it's so that you know what's going to be happening in a couple of weeks with the surgery. I have to tell you something, and you could hear a pin drop because they're just looking like, but you don't have any ovaries. I said, exactly.
Well, Miss Cheryl Scott, thank you for joining me today.
Of course.
I always so appreciate when people do, because they don't have to. They don't have to give their time. They don't have to share their knowledge. They don't have to share their experiences, but you have. And I just appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
I'm
And I want you to stay. I want you be encouraged. And those tears, trust me, I'm crying now. I'll cry when we're done, because I know that God's going to use this.
I wanted to be uplifting, and here I am, with the tissue.
But you are. The fact that you were, allowing this to get out. And then people can see someone who is, I mean, my hair is just growing back from chemo last year. And this is the length of it over a year,
Mhm.
So everyone's like, Cheryl, I just love the way your hair is coming in. I love your style. I said, style.
Yeah, people wear their hair like that. I wore my hair like that for
I'm
years.
gonna wear it
Short afro.
just like this. It's a little afro, a little texture. I'm
Mhm,
not dyeing it. I'm happy to have gray because I'm 67. And before I used to wear, crochet. I wore wigs through the whole treatment. And my granddaughter, and I'll end with this because we got to laugh. My granddaughter, when I went during the chemo, I went to visit, and she came into my grandson always gives me his room when I visit. So she came into the room and asked if she could visit with Gigi. I'm like, absolutely. So I had like a little, a hat on, like a winter hat. And so the hat had come off during my sleep, right? So she had not seen me bald because when I got there, I had a wig on. So
mhm,
she said, Gigi, where's your hair?
mhm.
And I said, oh, your cousin Tyler cut it off for me because it was starting to come out. And so of course she doesn't understand any of that. And then she said, oh, okay. She went right back to her iPad. Then she heard someone knock on the bedroom door and she said, Gigi, put your hat back on. So I asked her later, do you not like the way Gigi's hair looks? And she said, no, it looks all right. I just didn't want anybody to see you without your hat. And I thought she's protecting me.
Yeah,
She's protecting me. So I have more than one of those stories. So God still gives a sense of humor, especially with kids, you
yeah.
know, but you stay encouraged, you keep moving
Mhm.
and watch what God's going to do with your small beginnings.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.